So good morning, everybody. I hope you're all energized and ready to roll today. So I'm Enam Akoetey-Eyiah. I'm the Regional Director for Africa for the iTrack Standard Foundation. We founded IREC. IREC is a tracking instrument that shows that electricity has been consumed from point to point. And we like to say it's fact-based, exposed, and supports integrity in the markets, support decarbonization. So that's me. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Sound check. Okay, here we are. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mathieu Brun. I work for a company called ENGIE Energy Access. Self-explanatory, as in the name. Essentially, we're an energy access operator. We cover a quite large part of the spectrum in terms of technology. We are distributors of solar home system, right? Solar kits, all the way to operators of mini-grid. We like to think of ourselves as one of the leaders in the sector. We are present in 9 different countries, including Nigeria. And to date, we have impacted more than 1.2 million people, which we are extremely proud of. And obviously, we don't want to stop here and looking forward to grow. So pleasure to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Welcome and thank you for coming. Actually, here in Lagos, and I also welcome the online audience. My name is Karin. I'm the CEO and co-owner of ennos. Ennos is a Swiss-based private company, and we design and supply surface solar water pumps. We have 2 different models right now, like a smaller one, a 0.5 HP pump, and a 2 HP pump, and we specifically designed those pumps for the needs of farmers in remote areas. And yeah, I'm looking forward for this discussion here, and because it's also for me new that we try to enter the carbon credit market.
Awesome, thank you. Sebastian?
Yes, good morning. My name is Sebastian Rudolph. I'm from Atmosphere, a non-profit company based in Berlin, Germany. And thanks so much for having me here. Thanks so much for coming on that rainy day. Our company was funded in 2003 as a research project out of the Ministry of the German Ministry of Environment, and since then has been obviously working very closely with supervision by the ministry. Our products basically are in the field of consulting, how to reduce carbon emissions. We have carbon calculation mechanisms, and as well as in the field of project development and carbon offsetting. I'm the head of the department of mostly clean cooking, improved cook stoves, so to say. And I'm actually very thrilled, and I like to bring the excitement, because I just came from Paris last week, and I just told you that I think there is such a momentum, and I really hope it's not about just speaking and everybody being on stage and talking, but actually putting words into actions. So I'm happy to be here, excited about this session. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Just as a way of introducing the topic for today, it's leveraging carbon credits and voluntary carbon markets to multiply distributed renewable energy projects and enhance climate action. An interesting topic. I'm curious to hear what they also have to say. So I hope you listen and prepare your questions to ask them. Very quickly, I'll ask each of them one question at this stage, and just try to summarize, please, if you can. So this goes to you, Karin. How can pure equipment benefit from carbon markets? What change have you observed since partnering with Innovex and Carbon Clear? And also, what are best practices from your side? Please share. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I need to explain a little bit what the solar pump is. You know, for me, actually, a solar pump is a very good example of a product considered as productive use of renewable energy. Especially when for solar pumps, our end customers, mostly they are farmers, and so either they are switching then from maybe manual labor to a solar pump system, so then they have an automated irrigation systems, and then they can increase their productivity. Or they are switching maybe from a diesel pump to a solar pump, and then they can make a lot of savings through no more having any operational costs, and then also they can use those savings for other purposes. And for us, it was at the beginning when we started designing solar pumps, it was very important to understand the needs of the farmers, you know. And of course, they're living in remote areas, and so they need to have a reliable product. That's the first thing. So to bring a robust, reliable product to the end customer, but at the same time, because we have a B2B business model, meaning we are not selling directly to end customers, but to local dealers. And so for us, it's very important to bring good support to our local dealers, that they can have then, that they can give then this support to the end customers. For that, we need to have digital solutions. So we started actually with an app that you can connect to the pump to collect data from each pump. At the beginning, we had only like a connection through Bluetooth, which means you need to be close to the pump to get those data. And we are lucky now, you know, that we are in collaboration with a Ugandan company, you mentioned it, Innovex, and together we defined now a device where you can have automated data transfer. And with this data transfer, you know, you can get, you can locate the pump, you can get the energy consumption of the pump, the water output, how many hours you use the pump, etc. And if there's any failure of a pump, you can also locate it, and then it becomes easy for the local dealer, who mostly they are sitting in their offices are in a capital or in a city and not that close to the farmer, and that they can then send a technician who is close by and to fix something. So this is, for us, you know, to have this remote monitoring now. This is very important. And we're lucky, you know, that with this device, it's not only about remote monitoring, but in the same time, we can offer pay-as-you-go. And as an additional plus, we're happy that this device has been approved and verified by a company called Carbon Clear. It's a Danish company. They are active in the carbon credit market. They are offering on the voluntary carbon credit market carbon credits. And we're happy that with our device, which has been already approved, you know, with this automated data transfer, this Danish company, Carbon Clear, they can then calculate the energy consumption of each pump. And they can then see, okay, what are the CO2 emissions savings, which they can put then on the voluntary carbon credit market. And so they can sell it there, and we, as ennos, we will get then a refund per ton. It's not a huge amount, but at least it is something which we can use either also for further developments, and also to see that we can improve the system and we can also reduce costs. And at the same time, we also share the amount with our local dealers, that they get something, you know, that they invest in further after-sales services, that in the end also the end customer benefits from it. I think that's very important to understand.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think the connect between how this products benefits the local farmers is very important. So even though if they are not your direct customers, you are actually putting things in place that could help them benefit from this the carbon credits. So I'll come back to you on that question later. But moving next to Matthew. How does your partnership with Carbon Clear support ENGIE access businesses?
Yeah.
Can you share a bit about that? And how can, carbon markets be improved in distributed renewable energy sectors?
Thank you very much for the question. So some of the points I will make will echo somewhat what has already been said, but to answer that question, I'd like to contextualize it a little bit as to where we're coming from and why we got interested in the voluntary carbon market. So as I was saying earlier, ENGIE Energy Access, we are an off-grid company. We've been in the sector for 10 odd years. As I was saying, more than 1 million customers. And with that experience, with that track record, there's a certain, not lessons, but patterns that you see emerge, right? And one of the patterns that is emerging is that when you want to electrify this market of 600 million people who are living without a source of electricity in sub-Saharan Africa, the reality is that even if you want to provide them with tier 1 level of energy access, so the most basic energy access, the economics are extremely challenging. And then you're faced with a paradox. You heard it already in different panels, but your product, if you make it too expensive in order to improve your economics, the customer can't afford it. So you reduce your pricing, but if you reduce it too much, you don't have a business model anymore. And so I think really the starting point is to acknowledge that there's a figure we're always sharing, right? 600 million people who do not have access to electricity. But actually, to put it in perspective, 600 million people, that's also the number of people who live around or below poverty rate. So structurally, if you only want to work on a commercial basis to electrify these communities, someone else will also have to pay for it. I want that point to be extremely clear, because there were some confusion in the first panels. The customer alone will not be able to pay for it. So someone else has to pay for it, provided you want to scale and accelerate. So that's the starting point, right? I joined the company around 3 years ago as, precisely looking for those other people who would be paying the bill. I'm head of grant funding. So, one would say as a private company, it's a bit strange, you're looking for grants. Wait, are you sustainable? Well, you understand now why we're actually looking for grants, right? And when I joined the company, I took over the management of a project that was registered to one of the main standards on the voluntary carbon voluntary carbon market, that we had in only one country, right? And essentially, I tried to see whether this project could be scaled into our 8 other remaining markets, right? This could represent potentially an additional source of revenue to grow our operations. And so when I did the little due diligence about, okay, let's make a little benchmark, right? Let's look at other companies who've also used the voluntary carbon in our sector to grow. Let's have a look at it. And what I realized, if you look at the registries of those different standards on the carbon market, virtually no access to energy companies, virtually none. And that was a little bit odd because, spontaneously, we're selling solar energy. Customers usually would be using kerosene lamps, even if people would be connected to the main grid. The grid in most countries, not all, that's true, but in most countries would be relying rather on gas, quite polluting as well. So, it can be an expert debate as well on the right quantity, right? But from the offset, there should be a case to be made that we are improving climate action. So essentially, the title of the session, I think, is about enhancing also climate action, right? We've been enhancing climate action without even capitalizing on it, right? So when I looked about using the current standards to scale the project, I quickly understood why. Very quickly. Because the standards available today to issue carbon credits for off-grid projects, there's a complete mismatch between the whole process of registering a project, issuing the credits, and then being able to sell them. To give you an idea, I was referring, we have only one project in one country which is registered to a carbon standard, right? Just to do the reporting and to issue the credits, it took us 2 years. It took us 2 years when we need capital on an ongoing basis, right? So when I reached that conclusion, I was a bit gonna forget about it. It's not gonna work in our case, and that's actually where we made Carbon Clear as well, the same startup operating on the voluntary carbon market, and these people were very smart. They say, well, look, in your sector, off-grid, as my colleague was alluding to, you have tons of data. Tons of data. So let's just digitize everything, rely on the wealth of material which is already available for our business, all right? So if you want to check the quality of our product, well, guess what? We have Verasol who can confirm on the quality of our product. So just by relying on what was already existing, you know, instead of waiting for 2 years to have our credits, we have them in 1 week, right? So it's quite straightforward, right? And for us, it makes entirely a difference because that enables us to scale very much faster, use the same standard in all our countries, and this is how we can make an impact. So, my last words, we're currently building a coalition now on the off-grid side to try to pitch and sign a position paper to go afterwards, discuss with the likes of the African Carbon Market Initiative, C4All, the World Bank, to try to carve a little bit so that in the discussion around the carbon market, and I think we'll probably going to deep dive a bit more into it, at least there is a seat at the table for our sector. So if you're interested, please, after this panel, don't hesitate to reach out, and thank you very much.
Mathieu. All right. Great that things are looking better with Carbon Clear, and there are opportunities now to scale up very quickly. We'd like to hear more about that later on. So moving to you, Enam. I know you have a lot to say. How does iTrack analyze the trend of energy attributed certificates in DRE sectors? Can you just speak about that?
Okay, so probably to give you some context. So the renewable energy certificate market began in the United States and in the EU. They were all voluntary at the outset. They were designed to help companies report on the action they were taking to reduce their energy intensity in their production. Now, going back to that time, some may know about the greenhouse gas protocols and their corporate carbon standard. Now, the corporate carbon standard allows corporates to report on the action they're taking to reduce their emissions. So the question is, where is the source of emission in a corporate's value chain? So they segmented this into 3 areas. The first is the scope 1, the direct emissions of the corporate. The second is scope 2, the indirect emissions of the corporate, including purchased electricity for cooling and heating, and of course in the use in the organization. And then the scope 3, which is the supply chain, which we would agree that a lot of African corporates would be in. Now, how do you know, for instance, how much energy you're using in your scope 1 and in your scope 2, particularly your scope 2? And that's how the renewable energy certificate market began. Corporates will buy these certificates because what it does report is the end-to-end consumption, production and consumption of electricity. So if I've generated electricity and I've bought from the grid, say for instance, you buy, I'll say Ghana, you buy from Electricity Company of Ghana, it's in a huge pool. So you don't know at any point in time whether you're consuming green electricity or black electricity. So what the certificate allows you to do is to track that electricity you're consuming and report on it. So you're able to say, I consume 10 megawatt hours of electricity in my operations. 3% of it, or 10% of it, or whatever percentage of it is green, and this is the evidence for it. So a certificate is a fact-based instrument that communicates how much electricity or the kind of electricity a corporate is using. As a foundation, we are able to certify up to 1 kilowatt hour of electricity, the kind of electricity. But there's a particular problem in the DRE sector. Now, remember that this market was created in economies that are advanced, for the lack of a better word. They have established grids, and so you're able to see the grid reports or the transmission reports of electricity that has been transmitted. That is not so for the DRE sector, because it is mainly off-grid. And so you're not connected to a grid that allows that reporting to happen. So we had two entities, Energy Peace Partners, that really focuses on certifying projects in countries that have been affected by conflict. So they issue peace renewable energy certificates. The peace and renewable energy certificate allows 1 megawatt as well, but for countries that have been affected by conflict, and so they pay, the person who's paying for a PREC pays a premium. So for instance, when an IREC is costing, depending on the technology, maybe $1 or $2, depending on the country, a PREC might cost 50 because of the added value of its, the added value of reducing, increasing peace and security. And then we had another entity come in the mix called DREX. And they issue IREX to entities like yourselves, the DRE fraternity here, who focus mainly on distributed renewable energy certificates, distributed energy. Now, there's an entity that supports all of them called Odyssey. And we've been talking to Odyssey so that they can allow corporates or DRE providers who are on their platform to be able to link up with our systems so they can also issue IREX. So these are the things that we are doing to reduce the barriers to distributed in the IREC ecosystem.
Just a quick question. So can that be integrated now with Odyssey?
Yes.
It can?
Yes.
Oh, great.
It is.
Great to hear. Great to hear that.
Yes.
Thanks, Enam.
Yes.
So moving straight to Sebastian. Atmosphere has a long-standing experience in voluntary carbon markets. How has that changed over the last 3 years? Do you want to talk us through your strategy and what your organization is doing in that space? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, everybody was trying to put this into context. So I'm also going to do this. So I told you. So my passion really is our department of clean cooking, the improved cook stoves. Of course, we do have projects in terms of PV, mini grids, and e-cooking. So I'm also here to talk about that afterwards, if you're up for it. But I don't want to use this as a marketing platform, really. But if you want to be a project partner in terms of improved cook stoves, if you want our factory in Kano, Nigeria, to produce and distribute cook stoves to your community, I'm here to talk. Really, it's my passion, and there's hardly any. You wouldn't find any sector really where you get so much, where you can leverage on every dollar you spend. Where you have so much impact. That's just a statement, really. Anyway, so, but this is just very low tech. I understand we're here talking about much more complex, high tech, techie stuff. But to answer your question, what has changed? I don't, as I said, I want to be not pessimistic. I don't want to complain. I know there's challenges and everything, but it's so easy to say no and nah and everything. I think we should also highlight how much impressive work goes into building a framework, building capacity on enabling people to trust. Of course, there has been a bit of yeah, bit of a difficult media coverage or whatever, but at least there is media coverage, and that's always good. And I think that gives us the opportunity to move forward. So I guess in terms of, we all know, I don't want to go into detail. You all know what happened after CDM having run out, now the transition to Paris Agreement and Article 6. I think what I want to point out and highlight as positive is that I think African countries, the African continent, I was under the impression in the 90s or something, and we've been around for a long time. So I think our CEO and founder, he was marching the streets for COP1 in Berlin in 92, it was 91. So we've been around for a long time, but I think in the 90s, early 2000s, I think Africa was, I want to say, maybe they were not heard or were not in the discourse as much as needed as they are today. I think that's very positive. I think due to Article 6 and all the transition to Article 6, we are obliged to be in touch with all ministries, all government, very much earlier, due to the much more complex design of Article 6. And I know there has a lot of work has to be done in terms of Article 6.4, but I think bringing communities, bringing the government, bringing the countries together, and not just act as foreign investors and try to leverage on the investments is a good sign, I think, and especially also on focusing on the side benefits of the SDGs. It just brings everyone involved on a community level much closer to the cause, and I think that's what I find, yeah, most impressive in the last 3 years.
All right, thank you very much. Just so the audience know, we're going to come to you and take questions soon. So if you have any questions, just note them down. So general question, right? What policies or regulatory frameworks are in place or are currently being considered to facilitate participation of DRE projects in the carbon markets? Enam, can you take that, please?
Right. I think more can be done. The first thing that, in my view, needs to be done is really understanding the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is diesel and petrol generation for off-grid. If you look at the IPCC assessments, all of that information is completely missing. And I think that information needs to be there so that it gives accurate perspectives to people making decisions for Article 6.4, for 6.2, for national governments to really understand the scope. So I'll give an example. In Nigeria, it's estimated that there are 70 million diesel and petrol generators. That's twice the population of Ghana. Now, if you think about that and the impact of that on the Nigerian economy as we speak, it's immense. How much imports is Nigeria for diesel and petrol? Is Nigeria using to supply that? And it's recurrent expenditure. So it means that every year you're spending a huge amount of money on something that is absolutely polluting. There's a report that the IFC conducted, which is titled Dirty Footprint. And in their estimation, the size of distributed off-grid petrol and diesel generators is about, 100 gigawatts, 1,000 gigawatts, which is equivalent to 1,000 coal plants. Now, imagine that in the carbon budget of the world. That will just tip us over. But we are not accounting for that in the current assessments, and we need to do that. Once we do that, the challenges that you experience with the standards, with the UNFCCC and all these, technical people that are putting these methodologies together, is that we would change the way we view DRE. And we would recognize that it is not really about leapfrogging to a small from kerosene to, or from a charcoal to a kerosene stove. It is recognizing that for all these populations, the 600 million people, plus the 600 million who are without electricity, 1.5 billion people who are under-resourced with electricity, what we could do is give each of them 1,000 kilowatt hours of energy budget. How will that look like in the carbon, scheme of things? And once we do that, we would really begin to reconfigure and support the kind of financing that needs to go to projects like yours and yours, so that we achieve the leaps and bounds that we desire. I would really prefer that governments also advocate for this. I'm sure that a lot of times it is about, give us this grant funding for this, but it is not really strategic. And we need to move towards this kind of strategic thinking so that we're able to attract a much financing towards DRE. On our part as a foundation, we are working with different entities on the continent. I mean, particularly in Africa, we're working with different entities so that we have a unified single market according to the region. So the regional power pools. We think that would immensely increase the demand, and also encouraging governments to support what we call the Renewable Energy Purchase Obligation. The Renewable Energy Purchase Obligation, for instance, is in Nigeria's Energy Act of 2023. However, there is no backward linkage to how the government of Nigeria would really action this. The government of Nigeria could partner with us to, deliver or implement the Renewable Energy Purchase Obligation. If you look at India, for instance, there's a compliance requirement on businesses to use renewables. It has generated over $2 billion. Imagine that in Nigeria. So that's just a thank you.
Thank you so much. I told you Enam has a lot to say, but I think people can meet you up to get more information about that. So moving to Karin, right? You mentioned that you deal with the middlemen. I won't say not the end users of the equipment, right? You deal with the wholesalers. You sell to the wholesalers, and they then sell to the farmers, right? What sort of capacity building do you think these farmers require, right, to be able to purchase this water pumps, and also to use this new technology that helps them track the carbon that they're saving using this equipment? What sort of training do you think should be out there, and what are you guys currently doing, and what do you think should be done better in that regards?
Thank you for this question. The solar pump market, it's really not an easy market, to enter, because the main competitive product is still the diesel pump, also like petrol diesel pump. And the costs for, if you compare the initial cost for a solar pump, for a reliable solar pump, you also have cheap pumps in the solar pump market. But if you go for a reliable, robust pump, then the initial costs are much higher than if you go for a diesel pump. And this is still the biggest challenge what we face in the market. And I think I'm happy, that we were just at the right time collaborating with the right partners like Innovex, and then with Carbon Clear. And you also mentioned, Mathieu, when you would do on your own methodology to get carbon credits, it's impossible. First of all, it takes a lot of time, and you have to invest a lot of money for maybe not really getting a lot of refunds, And so we're really happy to have, in a way, like with Carbon Clear, which is, I already mentioned it, it's a data-driven carbon credit standard, which is, in a way, it's quite simple. When you have the right digital solutions ready, it becomes quite simple. And I think for us, to to be able then through carbon clear to get carbon credits recompensation, which we can share with our dealer. And as I mentioned, in the end, the end customer will benefit because we bring capacity building to our local dealers, and so there will be more technicians in the field, and in the end, each end customer will benefit. But it's like a whole process, and I really hope that also NGOs or organizations, programs, that they recognize also in the way the efforts, you know, or the up-to-date, the status quo of existing technologies, you know, and to support such products, you know, for programs, and to support in this way also that we can bring, first of all, like technology as a products, technology, capacity building to a country, which increases also like that there are more technicians then in the field, and with more technicians in the field, in the remote areas, customers, end customers, farmers will benefit or will be more comfortable with a technical solution like a solar pump.
Thank you so much, Karin. You know, one thing that's really important is a mind shift, right? Like you said, people used to the traditional way of traditional pumps, which are probably diesel powered or petrol powered, right? However, the solar pumps bring certain levels of innovations. Maybe expensive initially, but reduce cost over time, right? And I think selling this properly is what we need. And that's why I said we need to get the message out properly, to say, yes, this works, because you can easily just buy the equipment and fix it, but this is more sustainable over time. And also getting that information to the end user, which are the farmers, and getting them to understand that is important. I remember the Rural Electrification Agency deployed some of these units, and because it was government paid, right, it was easy to get them to try it out, you know, because they were not going to buy it, right? So that when they tried it and saw that it could work, you know, people's mindsets started changing. But again, there's a lot that needs to be done in that area. Do you want to add a point to that? Okay.
Just to add something, you know, because you mentioned, I think it's already obvious, you know, that in the long perspective, a solar pump is much more, it benefits much more for the end customer than a diesel pump. Even though this knowledge is there, it still it doesn't help when there is the fundings are not there for the initial payment. And we also hope with pay-as-you-go system and with awareness of you know, different parties actually, you know, to support it, because we're still in a market where we compete against the subsidized diesel prices. I'm happy to see that in Nigeria it's no more longer the case, or at least not in the same way. But in other countries we still face this problem, and I think to create awareness about technology which is available, it's there, it's no more like under development or we need to prove something, it's available, and that we, in the end, for us, it's also, I really hope to gain also the confidence of maybe donors, governments, NGOs, you know, to invest in products. With such products, you can also go on the carbon credit voluntary market.
I think it's great that you mentioned you guys, your organization considers this pay-as-you-go model. You know why I like that? Because you can't, if you say it's a pay-as-you-go model and the farmer is paying back in 18 months, it means that the equipment will have to work for at least 18 months. So that's also, I won't say it's a warranty, but you can't keep collecting payment on something that doesn't work. So that's one way to sell it, to say, at least we can guarantee you that in 2 years it will work, because we'll make sure we'll maintain it and, keep it active. So I hear you. There's a lot more that needs to be done in that regard, and, getting the NGOs together. And I think that's the reason why this sort of platform has been put together, where different people are brought together to discuss and to interact and share how they can make it better. And I noticed even before we had the panel session, everyone was already exchanging business cards and planning, next level of engagement. So great, Karin. Thank you very much. Moving to Mathieu. So private sector, ENGIE is deploying all of this, great stuff in Africa and in other countries. What sort of partnerships are you looking to get, right? Be it from the local stakeholders, government stakeholders, other companies like yourselves, maybe grant providers. What sort of partnerships will help grow this sector, right? The DRE sector, and also will support your business?
So there are two ways to answer that question. Just if I limit it to the voluntary carbon market, what we're doing on the voluntary carbon market, and then business in general. When it comes to the work we're doing with the carbon market, well, essentially right now we have a standard that works, a model where we can easily issue credits, but it still needs to be acknowledged as a reputable standard. Right, and this is critical. And for this very purpose, as I was alluding to earlier, we're trying to build a coalition precisely to make sure that this standard that works is then designed and shaped in a way that it can be accredited to the main accreditation body there are for the VCM, so the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market, and make sure that this carbon clear standard meets what the so-called core carbon principles, if you're familiar with the term. And for that, we're looking for some partners. The more we are, the more strength we will have in our endeavors. So again, please reach out. Because all of this work essentially boils down to one important thing, is about finding then buyers for those credits, right? If you have buyers, then the impact paid with those credits can materialize. And so that's the second type of partnership, in a sense, because it's just we're trying to look for buyers. Shamelessly plugging here, if you are trying to offset your CO2 emission for flying to Lagos, you can go on the Carbon Clear website and already purchase yourself some carbon credits to compensate your emissions on that one. I think we're both on the platform, so don't hesitate to have a look and pick whatever you choose. Then more globally, more generally speaking, as a business. So the type of partnership we'll be looking at, as I was also referring to earlier, what is critical is finding some support to compensate what the customer can't pay. And so that translates in a different way of areas. We're going to look for new suppliers who can enable us to make cheaper products, hence more affordable for our customers. We're going to be looking at, obviously, governmental agencies. Critical, the support of the government. It can make a business thrive as it can kill a business. I'm slowing down on purpose when saying that. Then sometimes, there are some situations which are a bit strange, where, for instance, you pay in VAT and custom duty the amount you're receiving in grant funding. So perhaps, some sort of overall coherence needs to take place in some countries here. Then actually what type of partnership we're also looking at is everything related to productive use. We are a solar home system company and mini-grid. We're still looking for some suppliers on productive use cases with the same mindset of trying to help our customers generate an income sufficiently so that they can themselves afford afterwards the electrification solution we're offering them. And then last but not least, the nerve of war, le nerf de la guerre in French, money, right? We need capital, we need funding. We're trying to raise some debt. We're also looking for potentially some new partners on board, financial partners on board, and this is obviously critical, and it also links back to what we were talking about, the voluntary carbon market. If we manage to have a profitable business model, everyone's looking, where's the capital, where's the money? Well, if you have a bankable business model, the money will come by its own. So yeah, I think it's a good link also to our conversation on climate change and PCM.
Thank you so much, Mathieu. You said cheaper, but cheaper and durable and sustainable, right?
It needs to be affordable, sustainable, and of very good quality for an exceptional customer experience.
Awesome, awesome. I wanted you to put that out there so we don't just hear cheaper products, right? Because that could connote something different. When we say cheaper products, sometimes people think of it as a reduced specification because you can't have the same specs cheaper sometimes, but it's good that you clarify that.
If I may just also add a little thing, it's part of the components where we're a bit surprised as to where currently the voluntary carbon market is, right? So to register a project, you have a quite long process of consultation, due diligence that is taking place, where our sector already has a wealth of material available to justify the quality of our product and the impact that we're having. And therefore, the work is a bit redundant. We're doing twice the same thing. So, if you were to improve how the VCM works, there's also a lot of work that needs to be done, at least for our sector. I don't want to speak for the others. I don't have an idea. But for our sector, there's a lot of redundancy that could get rid of and make some savings as well along the way, yeah? Just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you, Mathieu. I'll take that to Sebastian as well. Do you want to tell us about your products and, first of all, how it links to the VCM, as well as what kind of partnerships are you looking at to grow, first of all, your, I won't say product line, but your initiative, and how your current initiative ties into the VCM currently?
Yes, thanks. So yeah, I guess I don't want to stress the improved cook stove topic again, but you said, I like the number earlier, 600 million don't have access to energy in Africa. It's a staggering of 900 million people in Africa don't have access to clean cooking, inhale toxic fumes, and mostly obviously women are involved and yeah, it's obviously very harmful. So again, it's a passion for every stove we sell, every dollar we spend. We not only reduce emissions by 80%, but we really make an impact in terms of impressive side benefits, and they are more important to me. I just want to underscore that thing again. So what do we look for? We, as we said, to be able to develop projects, carbon financing needs to be addressed very early in the process. And if the mechanisms, if the framework is very it's not clear, then it's really hard to calculate and make promises. We as I said, we are an NGO funded by basically donations. No public funds involved. 90% of all the revenue, everything we do, besides donations, every revenue we make from our products goes into the projects. So we are. It's not like we wouldn't care about public funds, but we do really care about seeing every single cent or euro that comes from donors that trust us with their money, and they want us to have a significant impact. So we're looking for project partners where transparency, the whole business case is transparent, and the community is involved very, very early to make sure that that as I said, that it doesn't have the feeling of a foreign investment, so to say. So that's what we're looking for, and I guess with the program of activities that is in place at the moment. Again, I'm trying to be very positive, as you can hopefully you see that. It gives us the opportunity to scale, to start with a pilot, to reduce the risk, and actually from the funding, from the donations we get, obviously we have the opportunity to develop a project without really knowing what's the outcome. You know, it's always a bit of a gamble, to be honest, but we're doing it obviously. So yeah, as I said, so we like to be for it to be transparent, and yeah, talk to me about improved cook stoves. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Sebastian. This is going to go to you, Enam. What measures are being taken to ensure transparency, integrity, and I would say additionally in the issuance of trading of carbon credit? Do you want to speak about that?
Okay, so in the carbon credit market, I think that we're at an inflection point because of the integrity issues that have arisen. I think one of the key things that is being done, obviously under the UNFCCC framework, is to have the 6.4 clearly articulating that, setting out methodologies, baselines, etc., that would enable a more robust carbon market. Why? Because the market needs it. Without integrity, there is no market. And so integrity is key to everything. Now, the question also is, without integrity, do we really know the emissions that we claim to have reduced has actually been reduced? The EU has now passed a law, I think, or passing a law. The EU is, the UK is also doing the same to really put a stamp on greenwashing. And greenwashing is where you make a claim that you're doing a lot for the environment when you actually aren't doing it, or what you're doing doesn't stack up, or there isn't a strong evidence to support what your claims are. I'm not going to say, well, maybe I should. With IREX, on the other hand, is fact-based. If it has not been delivered, it is not there. We cannot issue a certificate that has not been delivered. Critical to an IREC being issued is the digital information or the fact of a transfer that has happened between the grid producer generator and the consumer, and that's it. Once that's been evidenced, a certificate is issued. It's exposed. Whereas in the carbon market, it is not quite the same. Maybe it would be really great if everybody would come to the IREC taxonomy. I think that would be absolutely superb, because then it would really reduce the transaction costs and the production cost of setting up a carbon project, particularly the DRE sector. If you look at China and Africa, that is what made the difference between the CDM, the kind of push that you saw in the CDM market in China. Some have huge questions about the credibility of those projects. It's not for me to say, but if you look at Africa, we didn't really capitalize on that. So that is what we have. I think we have a golden opportunity with the new changes that we are seeing within the Article 6.4 framework and the 6.2 framework to actually capitalize on that, to leapfrog and pivot. But I really just hope that all of you here sitting here add voices together, be on the table and not at the table to be eaten, so that we can take this forward.
Thank you so much. And I think one thing you spoke about is integrity, right? And that's the question I was trying to ask. I think what would add credibility to the carbon markets and the entire initiative is that there's some level of integrity where people know the certificate. I'm being conservative, but at least a decent level where people can take the certificate and they're certain that it will not be questioned anywhere, To date, I think there's some, gradual progression towards people gaining confidence in it, but I won't say everyone is on board yet. But I believe that within, now that there are things in place, policies and, multinationals are taking steps towards ensuring that they integrate this properly. I think that may add some credibility to the process, as well as also give other developers like ENGIE and also ennos that confidence, as well as the atmosphere, that this process actually works and it can support their business. I think that's the most important thing for developers. How can this support my business? And for others, also, how can I get funding through this? Also, how credible is this in other regions? Is it just great within this circle where I'm working and it can be transferred? Or, how can this be credible across? Because, for instance, Mathieu and Karin, they're working across different continents.
I mean, the foundation, for instance, has one standard that is applied in over 60 countries. 460 certificates have been issued. None of them have been questioned because it's based on integrity. It's fact-based, exposed. You can't argue with it, and it doesn't cost a huge amount of money to actually deliver. Corporates want to know that if I'm investing $1 million or 500 million or even 1 cent in a carbon project, I'm not going to be told 5 years down the line that this project does not exist. Nobody wants that to happen. We have had this happen in the carbon markets before. This integrity question, it's not the first time we've had it. But for it to be recurring means that there are fundamental questions within the market that have not been addressed. Hopefully we address them now, but I also think it is very, very important because for regions, different regions to have their voices felt and at the table, because different regions experience different things differently. They're different contexts. So in Europe, for instance, the question now for a certificate like what we issue is granularity. People want to see that 24-hour, over a 24-hour period, if I issue or I buy a renewable energy certificate or a guarantee of origin, that I know that 24 hours on the grid, it's green. They don't want 1 year anymore. They want absolute minute-to-minute granularity. That is also adding to the integrity question. Now, if you bring that to a country like Nigeria, can you deliver that? No. But if you create the rule that says that 24 granularity must be across board, is it equitable? No. So we need to be able to also be in these spaces where these discussions are had, so that the context of our environment is shared and articulated clearly. So people know that, okay, I'm designing the greenhouse gas protocol standard. I understand that in Nigeria, this is how it works. I understand that in Africa, West Africa, even if you look at the whole continent of Africa, it is very different. Even within the region, West Africa region, it's very different. Even within countries, it's very different. And so one size does not fit all, but at the very base, we need to have a standard that is applicable for all of them. And I mean, the iTrack Foundation does that. Hopefully, they all come to our place. But I suppose that it's really about standardization and governments working with those standards.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I like how everyone is marketing themselves here. Why not market yourself? Is the investment forum, right? So we're going to take a few questions from the audience, if there are any questions. Awesome. Can we get an extra mic, please? Well, I don't think any mic is coming. Please, can you just stand here? Okay. Thank you, Sebastian. Okay.
Thank you. A question, I'd say, for all the panelists, right? I think, Rudolph has talked about clean cooking. You're talking about sort of, solar pumps, and then You're talking about Solom systems, right? So I'm curious, what are your thoughts, right? Given all the things you've said today, there's been a bit of an up and down in the carbon credit market. So my question is a bit around, all of this depends on where those prices go. So where do you see prices today in each of your respective areas? And what are your views on where they're going to be in the next year, 2, 3 years? Because I think that's a critical part, right? But I guess the integrity helps, but just curious to see where are things today and where do you see them going?
So, all right, thanks for the question. I'll take Karin and Ennos and Enam and Nes if you want to comment as well. Thank you. But let's start with Karin. No, it's okay. Karin, you can go first. You have the mic already.
In a way, it's a very interesting question, and I would like to answer that. I could give the answer, for it, to already know where the market is going, and I only know it, the what I would have been offered today, of 1 ton of CO2 savings, but this is volatile, so I have no idea actually where it will go. Maybe my colleagues here on the stage, they have further knowledge about that.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us where it's going? Because that's a very important question.
When is the sun going to turn blue? Do you have that answer? No, we don't have that answer. Why? Because it's driven by market forces. And we don't control market forces. Market forces would adjust to credibility. Like we've said before, if they have trust in the system, people will pay for it. It's like how much does a Ford? Oh gosh, I shouldn't say any brands. How much does the Boda Boda cost, or the motorcycle cost, and how much does a top range car cost? The cost is determined by the specification, the quality standard. So it is the same thing in the carbon market. If you look at what you call CDR, CDR is direct carbon capture projects. How much are they costing a ton? They're over $100, okay? And then you come to nature-based solutions, and you get the same ton for $2. But it is a ton of CO2. So what is driving that? It's permanence. People want to know that if I have removed a ton of CO2 from the atmosphere, it is permanent. People are asking, or there are questions about how do you determine permanence? Is it in perpetuity? We know, for instance, that enhanced rock weathering can store carbon. We've seen that. I mean, the oil that we are all consuming today is carbon. But it's now been removed, okay? We know that diamonds are carbon. But how long is it going to stay out of the atmosphere so that we keep our Earth system the way it should be? And in answering that question, the market would put a price on the trust and the risk that they are willing to bear. So that's how the market is.
Okay, Mathieu?
My 2 cents. Yeah. So I'm not going to tell you the price, but I know 3 things. First, when it comes to the off-grid, the price is currently 0 because we're not issuing any. So there is a first problem to fix, which is about getting the off-grid sector into the VCM. I know a second thing is that while we do this, if there's no trust, that was already alluded to and referred to, if there's no trust and we don't come together as an industry to ask for a credible quantification of CO2 emission, prices are also going to be 0. Now, I'm going to make you dream a little bit, all of you, hopefully. You have some reports. I think the World Bank published a report on the carbon market, and they said where the price should be if you want to have a transformative impact. Welcome to the El Dorado. You're looking at prices around $60 to $100 per credit. So for the moment, very modestly, for the credits we've issued with Carbon Clear, we managed to find some buyers around a little bracket, 10 to 20, around that price. But obviously, the higher the price, the higher the impact. So, and then that's the market who's going to decide on that.
Thanks for your comments on that. Thank you. I hope you're pleased with the answer. Awesome. Any other question? Okay, we have a gentleman behind. Okay. If we could keep it short, that would be good. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Mustafa Akapo. I am from Benin Republic. Our company is Damo Africa. I'm the general director. My question is going to Mr. Sebastian Atmosphere. I would like to thank him very much for what you have done so far. I've heard about you a long time ago. Of course, clean cooking today solve a lot of problems, not only carbon emission reduction, but you can see in the rural communities, a lot of women are exposed on the fire. They are using firewood, and then they expose themselves about a lot of disease. And if you see the statistic of in the report, you can see that a lot of women they die about the way they are using the firewood, the smoking, all these things. So my question is that you said you are operating 90% of donation, and I want to ask how a company, a private company, we have a project, let's say that in the community, and we want to supply women that are making maybe they are using firewood to make gari, for example, and we want to supply the clean cooking, the stove for them. How can we collaborate with you? Are you going to donate? How can we collaborate with those people and then change their mode of operation of the way they are using firewood? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you get the question? Or do you want me
Yeah,
to
yeah.
repeat it?
Can I just, I hope I got the question right. Thanks so much for the question. So I guess if I understood correctly, well, we believe that, or we've seen with several projects that have basically just being dumped basically into countries. Not only like cook stoves that have been of very minor quality, you know, like within 2 or 3 years they are degraded and basically waste. But we saw that these cook stoves were not basically used. You know, they basically destroy the local market, like, because we want to support the local market. There is a lot of, you know, local engineering going on of improved cook stoves, and everybody puts their heads together and develops something incredible. So we don't want to destroy that by basically putting obviously a high quality product into the market and basically subsidize it. So the take on that is that how could you cooperate? We offer funding in terms of the capex. So we build the factory, but we build the infrastructure. We're very much interested in having a very close relationship with the government, obviously, with the community, to have a very solid, robust infrastructure. And then we believe a good product. You said it before. A robust product has a certain price. We have to ask. It's just simple as that, really. We have to look very closely, because it's not a one-size-fits-all solution for all the countries, all the communities and everything. We have to look into what's doable, what's possible, and to develop basically a business case together. But as I hope I understood the question correctly, so we're not going to tell, okay, there's 5 million stoves, go ahead and that's it. They're not going to be used. They're not going to be able to be monitored. It's as simple as that. We just produce a massive amount of waste. We're trying to, you don't want to become a bank, a financial institution, but we're working on schemes that offer installments. With every time we see each other, basically we offer education, how to use the product. To really also leverage on our consulting, on all the knowledge we want to, the technology transfer. Let's let's continue, please bilateral, let's talk about that and see what we can do. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take the last question very quickly, please.
Thank you. My question is thank you very much for your very exciting and very interesting. I just want to find out from you, do you think that Africa should have a minimum standards for pricing of carbon price? Should we have a one single minimum price for carbon? So that each country, Nigeria should not have its own determination for minimum price that they want to sell for carbon. Ghana should not have the same. There should be minimum standard for pricing. Do you think we should have that? I also want to find out from you, if you look at the methodology that is used for verifying the carbon emission reductions, do you think the methodology take into consideration the context of Africa? I just want to understand from you as well. And you're talking about ex post, that the carbon revenue is ex post. But most of the time, you have to spend a lot of money in developing the project itself. Yet, we do not have any pipeline facility that support project development. What's your take? What's your take on that? Thank you.
But can you do that in
Let's see.
a minute and a half, please? Thank you.
All right. So, can Africa have a common pricing structure? Africa is heterogeneous. I don't think that would work. It's nice in principle, but it is impractical to implement. And it's impractical to implement because of the different kinds of projects that are available. So what we can perhaps do is adopt a sectoral approach. So if you're delivering a project in off-grid, this is the minimum price that we are going to allow to sell for. But you also really need to work with the corporates, the buyers, because you can determine how much you want to sell it, but if you have no buyer, then what next? And that's why mechanisms like ITMOS, this Article 6.2, is very important. Our governments really need to understand that and leverage that. 6.4 is under design. Hopefully we put some really good structures in there to support, and recognize what our context is. I would say yes and no for the context. And the reason being that the people making the decisions don't live here. So if you live here, you design something from your lens. And so having the right lens, having the right perspective is very important. And that's why it's important that our technical people are not just technical people, hard-nosed in their own, environment, but are hard-nosed across so that they can be at those tables and have those discussions on our behalf. The third one is, what's the third one? What's the third one? The pipeline facility. It would be great if the Green Climate Fund could do that and the Adaptation Fund could do that, but they don't. Africa as well, the world has been arguing since the 1970s to have 0.7% of the Western world's GDP supporting aid, okay? It has not worked. Will it work now? I don't think so, because the track record isn't great. What we do have is to understand what we can use, how we can leapfrog, and leap over and pivot. Energy access and economic development are positively correlated. If we have increased amount of energy in our economies, people will be able to make money. They can feed their own children. They can take their own children to school. They don't need to rely on anybody for anything. So what we need to really encourage is energy access. If you have somebody in a village who is doing gari, and they can package their own gari and sell their own gari from Nigeria into Ghana, they won't need me to give them aid, would they? No. So that's what we need to really encourage, productive use of DREs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mathieu, you wanted to say something very quickly?
Just a small one on your last question. Indeed, we need the money up front to launch the project. Hence, the importance of having credible standards for a sector, because then afterwards, you have a different conversation when you talk to banks to leverage some debt. right? So if you have some guarantees, some assurances that you will be issuing credits, you will be able to sell them, you tell that to your banker, he's aware of that, well, you're going to get more interesting interest rates, you'll be able to use it as a security, you're having a different conversation. So also wanted to mention that as well.
So I like the point around it's great to have a minimum price, but if we can't get a buyer, then what good is the minimum price, right? So as much as we want to centralize things within Africa, which would be great, to be honest, it will help the smaller countries that are still upcoming, and it will help stabilize things across board. Also help people trade faster, generate revenues and all that. But we need to be sure that people are willing to buy at that price. And to get to that point will take a lot of networking, a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of even just knowing and understanding what the opportunities are, what people are interested in buying, what price is being, or is obtainable in other markets, and, how we can, modify our system in a way that we even have a central pool, right? Because if you want to, anyway, so it's a lot that needs to be done. It's doable, but it requires all of us to work together. And I think that's why we have a forum like this that brings everybody together. So our time is mostly gone. So something I'm going to do differently. I know we've been talking about work, everything. 10 seconds.
Company. There's a green guarantee company that guarantees funding or project development. But they usually look at big projects. I think one thing that our financial institutions on the continent and governments need to do more is to collaborate, establish funds, investment funds into projects. Once they do that, it will de-risk the project development aspect. Of course, they would also have to do their own, qualification. But once you qualify that, the guarantee company can support. Then at least it takes the risk and improves the price point.
Great point again. So on that, there are a lot of people here in EAIF, that have that structure, even in Nigeria. So I think just network and you meet a couple of those people. So very quickly, I learned something recently about a rose, and my colleagues taught me. So the rose means you share something not about work that happened to you that was pleasant. So I'll start with Karin. Just share anything in 10 seconds, pleasant that happened to you, or just something nice that is not about work. That's how we're going to end today. They did this to me at the last EAIF, by the way, and I almost fainted. So, but that was a different question. But I just learned about the rose. The rose means you share something pleasant. So, what's something nice that happened to you this week that you like to share in 10 seconds that is not about work? Everyone is struggling. You can imagine.
No, it's actually, it's fantastic to be here. It's fantastic to be again in Lagos, in Nigeria. It's, for me, it's always a pleasure to be actually in Africa itself, to meet that many different people, culture, and to have such an inspiring exchange. And this is, thank you very much for the audience, to stay until to the end. And you're most welcome then to meet me at our booth at the exhibition.
A quick round of applause for her. All right, so Sebastian, you next.
Yeah, it's a bit a combination of work and family, I guess. Being on the road is great. It's wonderful to meet people, to be around, but you're not with your family. So a great thing that happened this week is on a video call with my son, he said a new word. That's always beautiful, No, it's really
to hear that.
No, it's the perks of being on the road. Yeah.
Thank you, Mathieu. Next.
For those who are staying at the Echo Suite, heads up, the beef stew they serve at breakfast, it's actually quite spicy.
Good one. All right, and you next. I'm still thinking of my own, by the way. Oh my God.
So I went paddling on the Volta River over the weekend. So yes. That's my, I know, right?
Awesome. Round of applause for our panelists. And there's no time to share my own, by the way. So anyway, something fun that happened this week. I had karaoke with colleagues yesterday night, late in the night, by the way, and it was fun. I haven't done that in maybe 10 years, so that's something fun for me. So I hope you've had a good time engaging our panelists. Shows that they're working hard and also they have a pleasant side to themselves. Please feel free to network with them. And this is the end of this session. Thank you very much. And I was your host, Barbara Izilein, with Power Africa, Nigerian Power Sector Program. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot for the session and for the audience for your attention. Just to tell you that we will have now a 15-minute break, coffee break. And after that, we'll have two sessions, one in this room and one in the, I don't remember which room, I will just have to check. And one in the Fantasia room downstairs. So please enjoy the coffee break in the exhibition, in the Jasmine Hall, and be there in 15 minutes for the next session.